So anyway, some key aspects I think. So, generally a lot of these are more, I think, from our overarching platform perspective, but these are some sort of key areas here. And I think if you're actually already developing specific workloads, I kind of recommend, if you look on our site, you can go through like an Azure role architecture review on your own if you want, and you can select which pillar. It isn't just security, but you can do one and say security, right? And it will go through. It actually a lot of questions you kind of think about what you're doing, starting with the very, very early days of development practices and threat modeling, etc., all the way through to the end. So if you go through and start an assessment, it doesn't cost anything, completely free. It'll kind of help you maybe sort of think again about maybe some areas you might want to improve. And again, we're here to help. There you go. At the very beginning of the Q&A, I posted a link to this. So this solution here, I think it basically has a lot of doc site articles, etc., which probably refer to a lot of the topics on the presentation today. So you can kind of go through that at your own time, help reinforce it. And then I've got just a whole bunch of links here. So application security kind of today, very bottom of that, but sort of a lot of general guidance. And then if you actually are the applications themselves doing not just the code, which is just one element, right? Here's a lot of sort of workload security control I think are very important in terms of your overarching architecture, right? But again, we're just one provider in this whole mix here. But really, so when we pass this back to Sean, so he can really talk about how Cloud Direct can actually help you, beyond all this. So Sean, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you, Cassandra. I think that was fantastic. It's really comprehensive, and really enjoyed the content. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's make sure I'm back on. There we go. So Cassandra went through all the tools, all the concepts that will help us change the security landscape for us to be able to create and deploy secure code and applications that go hand in hand with that. So what I've got here is a real world scenario. My team spent a good few weeks with one of our partners to deploy this. Obviously, you're probably thinking, I can't rip out my tool chain at this point. I've got a dev process that works to a certain degree. I want to raise maturity. I want to raise security controls over that. I want to make sure I'm doing things the right way, but I can't rip out the tool chain overnight. So we worked with a digital marketing and PR agency that deals with content management, web services. We went through with them and we identified what their problems were, which is ultimately what we're here to do. And they had some concerns about the code, the quality of the code, the governance, the standards that were being delivered across inconsistent environments. Code was being released into production state where there were security exceptions. So when they had pen tests, when they had audits and things like that, there were too many things being raised where they had to go back through and rework, and there were some silly mistakes from all the way from the IDE all the way through. So they wanted to eliminate those. They wanted to speed up the way that good code could be released into the application. So we worked with them. You can see here from the diagram, we focused on Azure pipelines as the single tools to start delivering a lot of this content for them. They wanted to introduce some SAST based static application security testing, so some tooling there. So you can see some logos there that how we've called out based on the different branching strategy to automate and standardize some of their static application testing. So we know what good looks like. It can pass go in a QA environment. Yep, then we get the reports and we can start doing things with that a bit better. They wanted minimal changes to their dev tool chain. So obviously there's competitor logos here. There's things like Slack when we should be pushing Teams. Why are we using Jura? There's things like that I can't rip out overnight, and the organization doesn't want to rip out overnight. So there will be a longer transition. There'll be the real world isn't just Microsoft, so we have to be cognizant that there are integrations that we have to play with. That there's a wide range of extensions that fall into DevOps. It's a very complementary service, and most of this is API driven. So obviously we can make the API calls on demand based on where they're going to as well. The organization also wants to look at removing a lot of the overheads from the development team. Why are the devs spending time building environments? Why are they spending time you know, setting up tests, setting up scripts and things like that. We don't want the guys to do that because we want that to be templated and automated. Costs always, you know, something that need to be controlled. And you know, another really important point is about the reuse. We want this to be repeatable, so we can repeat this again and again, reuse all the good things again and again, so that we're not losing things when we start moving, you know, from different branches at that point as well. So just walking through the CI/CD components of this. Obviously, we use Bitbucket. Well, they use Bitbucket as code repository management. Once code merge was triggered, the pipeline would then pick up the code, move that to a different branching repository. The build itself would be triggered via the application state. So that was a variety of, I think, Gulp, Webpack, and Grunt was used for the different applications that were being compiled as part of that build process. Going into the dev branch, there was a lot of integration with the OS Wasp Zap tooling. So that was from the marketplace. You know, there's a lot of native tooling from the Visual Studio marketplace and, you know, the Azure marketplace, which allows you to you know, pre-compile or get pre-compiled packages all ready for you to run with. But the integration would be part of that pipeline. There'd be notifications to the Slack channel. So yeah, we've run this build. There's, you know, this many, you know, security scan vulnerabilities or whatever that is, and then if they would raise a ticket in Jira to say, look, we need to go then work on this, and then that work would then go back through as a bug report into the backlog for the developer to fix. So you know, the code isn't getting past dev. That YAML pipeline that's been created is setting out some of the framework for the developers to follow, so that, you know, if you know something's successfully gone through the dev branch, we've got a decent state of code to come out of it. Yeah, we've done some you know, TDD stuff. We've done some you know, security scanning. We know that the code is safe, so we can then move that to a further stage like QA, for example. The QA is a bit more in depth because obviously there's a bit more QA testing that this organisation wanted to see. So there was some call outs to Ghost Inspector, for example, and GT Metrics, which was, you know, probably the biggest testing process that they used, where the API call, you know, started the test, and the URL report that was generated was actually posted into the Slack channel as well. So not only was it saying the test had been done, but it was giving you the report from the API from the URL from the GT Metrics itself as well. There was further integration with PopeTech to make sure that, you know, the operational side of things, you know, user IDs and things like that were all obfuscated. So it's a bit more of the operational security going on top of the testing as well. And the same process, you know, I want to be notified when this is happening, and any defects or bug reports, please log them in Jira, so my guys can then get back on it and start, you know, breaking down the bug reports in the backlog as well. So, you know, it was a really good first go at introducing some standardized SaaS components to this. There's a lot more that we need to do with this organisation, and yeah, they do realise they're on this longer journey with us. You know, we want to start looking at maybe some of the more operational DAST components, so the dynamic testing once the application is in a further state. Some deeper vulnerability scanning. You know, so some of the stuff that Cassandra mentioned there, we will be positioning to get, you know, a lot more of the comprehensive tool chain together, and also evolving the SaaS to go left towards the IDE. So, you know, making sure we've got the right control and governance profiles into, you know, Visual Studio, for example, to make sure that, you know, the developers can't make silly mistakes like storing secrets in the code and, you know, things like that, you know, does happen, unfortunately. But it's a multiple phase of work that's helping this organisation raise their, you know, maturity and the controls they've got in place, but ultimately letting the devs dev. Yeah, that's what we're here to do. You know, let devs dev. We don't want them doing other things that's stopping them work through that backlog, because that's all about, you know, the developer velocity that Cassandra mentioned there as well. So that's just a real world example. I'm happy to go into any more detail, you know, after this. If you want to contact me directly, that's absolutely fine.